Hi, this is Lenore Weinberg. Can anybody hear me? Raise your hand. Okay, good. I'm putting Joel Weinberg on now. Okay. Joel.
I'm not.
Okay, you're in.
Okay,
You see yourself?
I do.
Where?
Right
Okay,
here.
Okay. Okay, here you are.
Okay,
You're in.
okay. I don't know any of these people.
Maybe his family from Milwaukee.
Bob Miller, I know.
No, say hello to him.
Bob, Joel Weinberg, how are you?
He's on mute. Bob, you're on mute. Unmute.
There we go. I'm on mute. Now I'm off.
All right. This is, what can we do? Everyone else, some people are on mute, some aren't. Richard
Well,
Cushion.
the people have to get them.
Okay.
I just unmuted.
We did. He is a year younger than me. I think.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, whoever you are.
Let me.
Tell them who you are.
I'm here. I'm David Adashek's granddaughter. I don't know if you can hear Jamie Adashek talking. She's showing. Can you raise your hand? She's in the video right now. I don't know if you can see it. It should say Blaine Goodman. So if you can look at that video, that'll be the first place that you're going to want to look, because those are. Who?
Yes.
So I don't know if you can hear her.
Not yet. Is she
No, they
muted?
can't hear.
She's, no, she doesn't look like she's muted.
Give me 1 minute.
Here's Wendy.
Yeah,
Hi, Wendy. It's Lenore.
hi.
Okay.
Blaine is muted.
Yeah, Blaine is muted, so we can't hear her.
Oh, there's Arlene and Richie did come on. Good.
Wait a minute, Wendy, she disappeared.
I'm here.
Oh, she did
Gotta look
disappear.
around, okay?
She did disappear.
I'm here somewhere.
Okay.
She's in her kitchen.
No, I mean,
Yes, she is.
she's in.
I can see her in the microwave.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So Blaine is whatever she's working. Granddaughter's working. A lot of people have.
Sound check.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this camera that I'm talking to you guys from is the one that, if you can, try to pin on your Zoom, and this is the one you're going to want to watch during. If you are talking during the funeral as like a eulogy or a speaker, just let us know so then everyone else can hear you, and we will change it from there. Good?
Good.
I'm going to assume yes. Okay.
Yeah, Bob Miller gives thumbs up, so we're good.
You want to put two for Simon and McGee over there?
They're in the cemetery.
I wonder which one.
Do you know Larry Moss? You don't know any of these people.
I drove by one this morning.
Okay.
They were
Who's
put-
performing the service?
Doesn't matter at this point. It really isn't. Well, it's not 1 o'clock yet. You got 5 minutes to go. So. Where does Bob Miller live?
Milwaukee.
Oh,
He's the only guy I know from college.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. You doing okay?
Doing my best. You're looking good.
Well, it's all superficial.
well, there's
Must be one of his grandchildren, maybe.
he must have a lot of
Yeah.
watch over there.
Mm.
It's very nice. It works like I've got my clock. It's fine.
Well, there's no, maybe not. Okay.
Well, this is gonna be what it's gonna
That's good, though.
be. Yeah,
They'll,
because you really can't see much.
well, whatever. Oh, at the,
It's at the cemetery there.
Carson.
no, there's already 25 set up.
Well, they can do more,
Mm-hmm.
but not much. Then it becomes like, I don't know. Larry Moss looks like he's a relative.
What?
Larry Moss.
I am. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. As I looked at how you moved, I thought, I bet you're a relative of Dave.
I am Pam's brother.
Oh, you're Pam's brother. Well, there
Yes.
you go. How wrong could I be?
Well, he was relative, but not what you think.
You, yeah. I think another brother will be joining, Eric Moss,
Okay.
and possibly, well, actually, I think my younger sister is with Pam at the funeral
Okay.
in Milwaukee. So I
You
think we're
want
all accounted for. And I see my cousin, David Masello, on here somewhere. Where'd you go, David?
Wrote you a
He's right below you.
There's David right there. Hello, David.
Hi, Larry.
How are you? I love your walkarounds in New York City. I enjoy every one of them. It's great to see the city from all these different perspectives and stuff. You do a great job with those.
Well, thank you. It's my one way of keeping sane here.
It's a great way to do it. Get out and walk the city. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel there's nothing I've not noticed these last several months. You know,
Yeah. How are the rest of the Masellos these days?
they are fun. I see one of them down there, Robert, my brother.
Okay. Oh, good. Robert's on. Good.
Represent all the big cities: New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles.
That's right. Man,
Okay.
Not easy.
let's see if I can.
Already. It's almost a couple more minutes.
Well,
Yeah.
it's 1 o'clock now.
It's a couple minutes yet.
Robert is seated, doesn't know this.
Larry,
Yes.
hi.
Hi, June.
It's so good to see you.
Nice to see you
Hi,
too.
And your beautiful Marjorie.
Hi, June.
How
I
are
Miss
you?
you so much.
I
Yeah.
miss you guys. I miss you guys.
We'll
It's
see each
such
other
a sad
soon.
occasion,
Terribly bad.
Yes.
terrible time.
Mm.
We didn't
Yeah.
have anything like this.
Hi, Robert Masello.
No,
Nice to see your face.
they just did it with their immediate family.
Hi, Martha and Jim. Hi, honey.
Hi,
How are you?
Larry Moss. I haven't seen you in an age.
Tell him who
Hi,
you are.
Mary.
You won't even know who you are.
Hi.
Yeah, he has a name.
Yeah, but you don't.
Oh, I'm where it says Marshall, Larry.
Hello, Marshall.
It's Jim Gray. Hi,
Hi,
Mayor. How
Hi,
are
Mayor.
you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Okay.
Very sad about this,
It's
Yeah.
very
but good.
good.
Very sad.
Hi,
Yeah.
Judy and Art. I'm
Okay,
going to
1
mute.
o'clock.
All right. Laura,
Yeah,
be patient.
I know. Wendy keeps wanting to make it large, messing with her computer. There's about 30 people on here now.
25 different frames.
Yeah, there's more than that on here though.
It's multiple pages, so it's actually this time's at least 4.
David.
Let's see all these different looks you can get here. Look at this. You can do this. This view.
Mhm.
I don't see Bonnet.
Yeah, I look at a wall.
This.
Wonder if she knows about. Hi.
There's Chuck Cohen. Hello, Mr. Cohen.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Mr. Moss. Hello, Miss Clark. There's Miss
Good
Janet.
morning. Good morning. Good morning
Hello,
down
Janet.
there.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, who are you?
Mary Frank.
Hi, Jason and
Chuck.
Jody.
Mary, where are you?
Hi, Janet.
Where are you?
In California.
So are we.
Jody, welcome to the family.
Where's
Where's
Pam?
Jody?
She's not on yet?
She's up here at the cemetery part.
Jimmy Gray with a mustache?
No, Jim doesn't have a mustache.
I'm on the side.
It's a
that says
bad
Martha.
shadow. It's a
He said
bad
he
shadow.
said It
Sorry.
looks like he has a bad shadow. I might have a mustache.
No, you don't.
Chuck, Jeff and Sue
Hi,
here.
Chuck. Hi, Jim and Mark.
Hi, how are you, Bud and Julie?
Hi, Claude. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Chuck.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
I have got a
Is that
flip.
Pauline?
Oh,
Oh, I see.
Whatever.
I think we'll,
Can't.
J and A Friedman.
Still don't see Banana.
So
All right.
Hey, Banana, did you know that the funeral was right now?
No, we had, here it is.
Oh, really?
I don't hear anybody talking.
You don't want to unmute it?
Yeah, they said unmuted.
No, they didn't. I said,
You're
if you
fine.
want to unmute it.
Okay, but leave it unmuted. You want it muted? But leave it unmuted. You want it muted?
Jamie, no ha estado, pero ya parece que está ya ahorita nomás en la computadora. Ya. Pero no sé si hay una.
well, we don't want ourselves.
Jamie, no ha estado, pero ya.
Watching start streaming 17 minutes ago.
Pero no sé si hay una.
You don't want to see us.
Maybe you see yourself until it starts. I don't know. Here we go. Maybe this is. Watching start streaming 17 minutes. Because there's a delay. Let's go up to Glenn Goodman. That's the service is happening. Just get rid of the YouTube.
On behalf of the Adashek family, thank you for joining us on this sad occasion. To Jamie, Sarah, and Jordan, Lisa, Roberto, Alec, Elena, and Nicholas, Daniel, Hongbian, Benjamin, Ariel, and Ava, John, Jeannie, Simon, and Michaela, Viev, Amelia, and Ethan, and to Pam Cohen Adashek. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking David's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. Shir lamalot esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz al yiten lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yekeka ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzitcha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Hashem, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither sleeps nor slumbers. God is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day, the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Hashem will guard you from all harm and guard your life. God guards your going and your coming now and forever. Our first speaker is David's son, Daniel Adashek.
Hello, everybody. My dad touched us each in different ways, and I have a couple thoughts I'd like to share that he inspired in me. First one is called, I'm going to try and make it through this, Song to the Songbirds. Sing a song to the songbirds. Please don't fly away. Sing a song to this bright sky. Today is not another day. Sing so you can rest now, even if it's not just what you'd like to do. Set your sights on Mama's face. Be together through eternity. This world was just a place. Sing a song to the songbirds. Your dreams live through our eyes. Sing a song to the songbirds. Fly in circles across the sky. Songbirds, we see you there. Together watching, chirping in the tree. Sing a song to the songbirds. The songbirds now are free. Sing a song to the songbirds. The next one is the rainbow staircase, holding hands in eternity. So a fixture in our tall house growing up was a rainbow staircase, pretty tall one, which poured color into the rest of the house. And as kids, we'd set up purple sleeping bags for camping that were supposed to be used for camping at the top of the stairs and barrel down the stairs as fast as we could, slamming into the slate floor. Pretty hard. So today I'd like to take one more journey with those stairs. So if you could close your eyes and imagine for a minute that we're back there today. And we're observing a ceremony with our parents holding hands. And they're at the bottom of the staircase. The sun is shining through the window at the top. There's a breeze blowing and Mrs. Davies' pines are waving back and forth. They're both dressed for a night out with friends, casually, just ready to go. Could be a symphony, could be a dead show. There's flowers, there's piano music playing from the living room. There's some Dvorak on the cello. They both look young as fresh cut flowers, smiling, looking over at all of us. There's a glint in each of their eyes, and their smiles are radiant. Not much is being said, but it's certainly not quiet. Children are everywhere. Honey, we need to leave. It's time to go. We're going to be late. It's going to be okay, David. It's going to be okay. Let me give the kids a kiss for the trip. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Hugs and kisses for each of the children. For Jamie, Lynn, for Lisa Gale, for Daniel Charles, for Jonathan Howard, for Andrew Jared. A little less patiently, my dad's standing. The moment's here. Things have settled down again. And with their hands held together, the procession begins. First step is a red step. The lips couch by its right to the side. Next stair is a violet stair, just like the purple Buddha sweater you could catch my dad wearing. A blue stair is next as they move up. Blue like the eyes that my mom shared with me. Blue like the blue Buick that kind of rusted in the driveway for a long time.
That's my first car.
The next stairs are green and yellow, so we pretty much know where that's going.
Go, pal.
And it's on to the orange stair, the orange parrot, the orange VW. And at the top, the red stairs. Or, I'm sorry, at the top. And at the top, the rainbow's complete. It's GBYXOXO. It's holding hands in eternity.
לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. עת ללדת ועת למות, עת לטעת ועת לעקור נטוע. עת להרוג ועת לרפוא, עת לפרוץ ועת לבכות. עת לבנות ועת לשחוט, עת ספוד ועת רקוד, עת להשליך אבנים ועת כנוס אבנים. עת לחבוק ועת לרחוק מחבק. עת לבקש ועת לאבד, עת לשמור ועת להשליך. עת לקרוע ועת לתפור. עת לחשות ועת לדבר. עת לאהוב ועת לשנוא. עת מלחמה ועת שלום. There is a season set for everything. A time for every experience under heaven. There's a time for planting and a time for reaping. A time for keeping and a time for discarding. A time for loving and a time for hating. A time for embracing and a time for refraining. A time for slaying and a time for healing. A time for laughing and a time for weeping. A time for dancing and a time for wailing. A time for birthing and a time for dying. A time for speaking and a time for silence. A time for seeking and a time for losing. Our next speaker is David's longtime business partner, Gail Grunwald. She will be followed by Andrew Adashek, another of David's sons.
Hello, everybody. I met David 25 years ago at Elsa's while I was waiting tables finishing up college. He used to come in once a week with a group of men for martinis and hot fudge sundaes. And over that year, I got to know not only him, but this loving family of friends that he had around him. And that was just the tip of the iceberg with David, because he would meet somebody and you would become family very quickly. We became business partners, but he was also much more than that to me. It went from business to mentorship to family. He was always in my heart. Even when we had stopped working together, we were always working together. I could call him, bounce ideas off of him, cry with him. We laughed a lot. Like everybody who meets David Adashek, you become an Adashek. All of the siblings, I feel like, are my siblings. All of the stories they share, I feel like, are my stories. A couple of things that I learned from David that I will never forget early on was always return a phone call within 24 hours. If you didn't do that, you were just rude. You had to enjoy every holiday for about 3 days time span with a lot of food, especially the 4th of July. The day before the 3rd of July, the day before the 3rd was all shopping. The 3rd was the party. And the next day was eating the leftovers and drinking the leftovers. He liked to play as hard as he worked, and that was a lot. Sometimes I would get faxes, this is dating ourselves, fax timestamps at 4 a.m, and we would still be working at 6 or 7 p.m. But often he would look at me and ask if the sun was out, should we go to the ball game instead of working in the office today? And we would sit in the stands with a beer and a hot dog and watch the game and take calls. He really knew how to get things done no matter where he was. With David, music was always a must. I learned that early on as well. We didn't have a lot in our office to begin with, but we did have a stereo. And he played music anytime we weren't on calls. I half expected him to come through all of this, leave the hospital, and to tell stories about everyone he had met, from the nurses to the other patients. He would know anyone's story from one meeting, right? He could tell you everything about them. I half expected him to come from this with a couple of business ideas, because that was also what he was good at. And alas, that's not meant to be for us with David this time. What we can take from us, though, from David and live forward with is his loving spirit, his inclusion of everybody, and his big bear hugs. And just carry on and live that way as he did. He'll be missed. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. That was really sweet. So I thought I was going to ad lib something, but I wrote it early this morning because I just didn't know if I get through it. But so this is called a eulogy for an eulogy for an adventurer. Many of the earliest memories I have of my life take place in my childhood home on Kramer Street in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin. I see through my younger eyes the comfortable library where my dad made his office, a narrow room with a wall of books, a chair or couch that invited you to sit and read, and a wet bar with an always dripping faucet and a cabinet full of evening cocktails waiting to be made. However, all these things were just a backdrop for the most important place in the room, my father's big roll-top desk, pressed against the window and overflowing with papers, filled with the tidy script that had poured forth from my father through one of his many fountain pens. This was the place where I would most often find my dad working away, delighting in each new idea he created or discovered in a book or in the evening journal or morning sentinel. Outside of the office was a home filled with family. My father's best friend in life was my mother, Anne, who used to always lovingly say she had 6 children to look after. Their love was not one that went unspoken. Mostly it was my mom who did the speaking, but my mother would make a point of stopping during the day and announcing that she loved him or each of us children out loud, and he would smile with a face squished by a hug from my mom, and he would smile and say, I love you too, smooch, 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 and he just knew how lucky he was. Of course, there were 5 Adashek children that alone were enough to fill the house with the constant cacophony of screaming and play. But the family my parents made was always much larger than just us kids. There was Khaki, my grandmother, and Lucille and the Moore family, and Tina and little Harold, who I always was excited to hear when he'd be coming over for the day. Andrew Jacobson and Mitch Rotter that were as much their children as I was. Later, it was my friends Brian and Bridget and Beaner and all the people that my dad would ask after. And there was always a cat named Mano in the house. On the walls hung art, much of it from my Aunt Judy. My Uncle Kenneth, the conductor of the symphony, would come over in the middle of the night when the foghorn near his new house blew out of key and he couldn't sleep. Uncle Jerry was the family doctor that my father looked up to. Uncle Jeff and Boomy, and of course, Camilla and Jimmy. Jimmy was just Jimmy, though. It wasn't until much later that I realized that these people in my life weren't actually related by blood, but they were beloved by my parents in the same way that they loved us. My dad was not really one for throwing the ball around or shooting hoops sometimes, but that was more Tom Jacobson's role as my dad number 2. My dad's way of showing me love was to give me an imaginary sum of money to build an imaginary stock portfolio and track it with a piece of graph paper every morning as we combed through the Wall Street Journal together. Or talk to me about how you could turn a pot of flowers at Elsa's into a business with a camera and an idea. Or debits and credits. Of course, Saturdays were for Badger games and Dottie dumplings, and Sundays were for tailgates and Packer games, but I don't remember us winning a lot of games when I was a kid. As I grew a bit older, I began to understand the concept that my father was a businessman, an entrepreneur even. I thought that meant he would constantly be looking for ways to make a lot of money so he could retire and sit idle and read a book or two. It didn't seem strange to me that my father would buy tennis clubs or candy factories or mannequin companies or printing shops or hospitals in Bangladesh, infrastructure projects in Kazakhstan, or cell towers in Vietnam. I thought that's just what you did if you wanted to earn a living. The more I knew, the more I worried when things would go astray and projects would fail and I'd find him in the kitchen working at 3 a.m. eating Ben and Jerry's. I didn't understand. Why not just find a regular job? Outside of business, life was always an adventure for my family, led by my mom and dad. Dad would mail order tickets for the Grateful Dead and almost always end up with better tickets than I had and would wave to me from the front rows. In tow would be all of his friends and he just wanted to share the moments with, giving away Bloody Marys in the parking lot to fellow Deadheads and swinging in music and rejoicing in the good things of life. The years moved on, and after a big fire, we moved out of the house on Kramer into an apartment on Brady Street. My father, of course, started a new company and began working with his dear friend Gail. He loved that project and loved working with Gail. Gail was a friend and like a daughter to him. He would arrive at the office so early to work that he'd get parking tickets because the streets were closed for night parking. I was in college and debating a trip to study abroad in China. It seemed like a big step and I wasn't entirely confident in the idea. Over a meal, and Emil was always involved with my dad, we talked about it. He insisted that I go. I had to go see the world and all the amazing things it had to offer. He was alight with the ideas that I would be an adventurer like him. When I returned with a whole new crew of friends, my mom and dad made sure to throw one of their biggest 4th of July parties ever. We got everyone in an apartment in the same building to stay. He insisted that I invite all my friends from the trip and wanted to hear about each of them. My parents fell in love with my wife, with my mom going so far as to tell me that I'd better never break up with Fett, because if I did, she wouldn't, and I'd have real problems. Unfortunately, it wasn't long until my mother became sick with cancer. There were a few more months of my childhood left until she passed away, leaving us so utterly heartbroken. My father had lost his partner and fellow adventurer. A deep sorrow settled, but soon my father began to tell himself what he would later tell me when I had trouble. Tomorrow's another day. Get out of bed, brush your teeth, pet the dog, and put one foot in front of the other, and just persevere. My dad was indeed one of the luckiest people I've known. Soon after getting back on his feet, he met Pam Cohen. The beam was back in his heart and the smile was back on his face, and he'd found love again and a new partner with whom to adventure. He moved to Chicago, and the home I knew as a child was passed on to the next families. As I had my own growing family, I began to understand more and more about why my father spent so much time heads down in work. Yes, of course, there was a baseline of support needed to take care of the kids, but soon I was building businesses of my own. I began to draw on all the subtle things that he had taught me over the years with the stock games and conversations. We had fun talking about business and problem solving. I realized that the experiences he had had as a younger man, though they seemed like business failures to me, were just rich learning experiences to him, just adventures that he had had. I began to learn that there was a certain zen in all the madness. The one benefit of Los Angeles traffic is that there's plenty of time for phone calls. My father and I spoke every day, many times twice a day for nearly 15 years. I was able to understand him more deeply and personally over the years, and when I realized he was just a person like me, the kind, gentle heart and curiosity came through in every conversation. The last phone call I ever had with my father was when I still thought he was going to get out of the hospital. He told me he was too tired to talk, but mostly wanted to listen. We talked about how my nephew Alec was working with me on a project and my dad's love for him and his hope for Alec's happy future. When I told my dad I knew Alec would do great in life, he said, "Of course, but keep an eye on for me, please." He didn't get a chance to grow up in our house. I didn't get a chance to teach him. I wish I'd heard those words and realized it'd be the last conversation we'd have, but I didn't want him to tire out, so I forced him off the call. Literally until the day my dad died, I still had a question in my heart about why he spent so much time working and just so busy over all the years. Then the calls and emails and texts started to come in. The common theme that was no matter what the relationship was, childhood friend, family, business partner, even just an associate, they would tell stories about how much my father gave of himself to be their friend. I realized he wasn't just busy building and adventuring, he was busy giving of himself. I'm sure that's how he would like you all to remember him, as a friend that loved you. He may have shown it in a book, shared, or a drink, or an idea, or a story, or a song, or a joke, but he loved people. He loved his family. He loved to use his mind to puzzle. He loved being an adventurer, and he loved you. Dad, I hope you're proud of me. You're my hero, my superpower, and I'll carry you with me on all my adventures and in everything I build.
When I die, I want your hands on my eyes by Pablo Neruda, a poet David admired. When I die, I want your hands on my eyes. I want the light and the wheat of your beloved hands to pass their freshness over me one more time, to feel the smoothness that changed my destiny. I want you to live while I wait for you asleep. I want your ears to go on hearing the wind, and for you to smell the sea that we loved together, and for you to go on walking the sand where we walked. I want for what I love to go on living. And as for you, I loved you and sang you above everything. For that, go on flowering, flowery one, so that you reach all that my love orders for you, so that my shadow passes through your hair, so that they know by this the reason for my song. Our next speaker is Pam.
You pretty much heard and know what David and who David was. I just want to say how grateful I am to have been able to share him with all of you for the last 15 years. And also, I want to thank the whole family for taking me in and embracing me like part of your family right from the very beginning. It really meant a lot to me. Short and sweet.
John Adashek.
I'm gonna try and get through this. Got a few points, so we'll see where we go. Clearly, this is incredibly hard and much too soon. Just last week, Wednesday, I was talking to my dad. He called, and he was giving me advice on what mortgage we should take out for the new house we're getting. He was asking about Jeannie and the kids, how Jeannie's father was, how Jeannie's mother was. He was asking about all my siblings. And he told me to tell everybody he loved them, which I knew he did. You've heard a lot about him from everybody. For me, there are a few things that I'm trying to focus on. First, the lessons. I think the first lesson I learned from my dad was to live life to its fullest. Whether that was celebrating a party, going to a Packer game, tailgating at the Albers. I do remember one day he offered somebody walking by, we were at a tailgate, and he said, somebody, hey, do you want some food? And the guy said, only if you have shrimp. And my dad said, I've got 2 pounds. How much do you want? He loved to travel. I used to go to Amsterdam regularly for business, and he would tell me about the Kirchhoff tulip garden in Amsterdam. It could be the middle of December, and he would say, just go look and see if there are any tulips starting to bloom. He always wanted me to go. Next time I go to Amsterdam, I'll finally make the trip. He also loved politics. For those who we grew up with in Whitefish Bay, there was the famous yellow flyer that almost led to a divorce between my parents. But he was passionate about the politics, both locally and nationally. And when I was working in the government and on the campaigns, he always had a great suggestion for sometimes the president, even though I had to explain to him I didn't see the president on a regular basis, or for the candidate. I also learned a lot about unconditional love. People have talked about that. Family. Family was first amongst everything. For me, it's sort of the three F's. There was unconditional love for the family, for friends, for my friends. He was always asking about Pinto, and did Pinto have a new girlfriend, and what was going on with Pinto, about Hal, about Greg Esser, Jody Stein, Dan Klein, Brian Daly, Lisa Stone, Amanda, all my roommates from DC. Many times he was also asking about Micah, because Micah's not just the rabbi here today. He's a lifelong friend. Next was family. Finally, sorry, on unconditional love. The third F was food. My dad loved food. Be it Benji's, be it when Pam and Dad came to Japan, going for 6 a.m. sushi at the fish market for breakfast, or when we were in France in the Loire Valley, and that amazing lunch we had as we were touring the different chateaus. He always loved food. Third, family first. He always put us first. I don't understand how he had 5 kids and lived to deal with it, because we all wanted to talk to him every day, multiple times a day. But he still did it. And now I think I maybe understand why he started working so early and worked so late into the night. He loved my mom, and he loved Pam more than I think anybody could know. Many of my last conversations with my dad, towards the end, he would say, okay, if something happens, it says on the board I'm supposed to get out of here on the 19th. I think it may be 20th, 21st. But if something happens, you have to take care of Pam. And I would always say, you're getting out of there, don't worry. But we'll also take care of Pam. Pam, he loved you so much. The rest of the kids and all the grandchildren, always asking about Simon, Michaela. And he always had that trick to avoid getting anybody confused with the grandchildren by just saying, hey kid, how's it going? Another lesson was help when you can. It doesn't matter the payback. I was speaking with Rabbi Cheplowitz from WITS yesterday. And he said to me, your father, was it yesterday? Wednesday. Sorry, it's a bit of a blur. He said, your father was one of the good guys. One of the guys who didn't matter what the payback was. He wanted to help people. He helped us do so many things here at WITS. And I know he helped so many other people. And Larry Moore is here today. And I was talking to Harold the other day, and Harold was reflecting on all the times that he spent with Harold and the rest of the Moore family, and what he tried to do with them and help them like they were kids of his own. I think the fifth and final lesson I'll focus on today is 2 things, music and style. My wife thinks I wear too many wild and crazy clothes sometimes. Clearly comes from my dad. The big white sport coat with ladybugs all over it. If we could only find that, I'd be wearing it today. There was also the music. I could still find my way around the backstage of the PAC in my mind after going to the symphony so many times, going to the Grateful Dead concerts with them. And if I go back to the music, to the clothes for a second, that wolf sweater that so many people know, that was his. Hard to believe. Come from him. Dad, I'm going to try hard to follow those lessons and pass them on to my kids. If I look forward, and I'll finish soon, sorry. We look back in this difficult time, really trying to focus on some of the fun times too. Back to that trip to France. We've laughed many a time in our house recently as we were thinking about, we were in Monet's garden in Giverny with Pam and my dad, and his legs and back were bothering him. So his knees and back were bothering him. So we put him in a wheelchair to push him around. That meant me. And we were on the bridge that many of you have seen in Monet's famous paintings, the arched bridge. And we stopped at the top to take some pictures, and I took a picture of Jeannie, and Dad got out. I don't know if you remember this, Pam. He got out and he walked around and looked a moment, and then he sat down again, and he started just push the wheelchair with his foot. And he started heading towards the downslope of the bridge. And there was a group of about 10 Japanese tourists there that were about to get run over and probably killed by my father. So I dove after the wheelchair, and we said, no more wheelchairing on your own. He loved to travel, but there was one trip he didn't make. He wanted to come see our new house that we're going to move into. We're going to have a special spot for him. He'll always be in our hearts and our minds there and everywhere. He did fight to the end, but finally it was too much for him. He had to make his final trip back to his hometown of Milwaukee. And here he is today. He'll be laying next to my mother and here for all of us to come visit. I want to say thank you to everybody who's cared for my dad during his time. Whether it was Dr. Volberding, who always was there for the oil, and he'd say, I'm just going up to see Dr. Volberding for the oil and grease check, to Derek, his nurse in the hospital, his PT folk, his PT team, his eye doctors, everybody. Thank you so much. Micah, thank you very much for doing this. COVID sucks. It's serious. I think everybody who's here and everybody who's watching understands it. Simon and Michaela, plug your ears for a second. Wear a fucking mask. Please. Dad and Pam did everything they could to not get this. Somehow, they both got it. Thank God Pam's okay. Unfortunately, Dad is not. Dad, we'll all be okay. We'll help Pam. We'll take care of Pam. She'll be okay too. Say hi to Mom, to Kaki, Wilsey, Seely, to the grandparents. Hopefully you'll get a good show by Jerry. Maybe he's playing regular ones up there. We love you, Dad. Miss you.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsa, Bino deshe yarbitzeni, Al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovet, nafshi yeshovet. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech v'gei tzalmavet lo irara. Ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, neged zorerai. Dishanta Hashem en roshi, Tishanta Vashem en roshi. Dishanta Vashem en roshi. Kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai. Veshavti b'veit Adonai liorech yamin. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David Adashek was born on November 30th, 1937 in Milwaukee to David Adashek and Sarah Rosenthal Adashek. David ben David received the name of his father because his father died of a heart attack at age 44, only 6 months before David was born. As a young child, David was raised by his mother and aunts, his mother who was independent by circumstance and tenacious by character. As a single parent, she overcame challenges and instilled that spirit into David. We know this because along the way, he faced hardship and persevered. While working to make sure they managed financially, Sarah exposed him to the arts, making them thrive culturally and spiritually. She had him take piano lessons from an early age. There are records of his playing, and this helped cultivate in him a love of music that stayed with him for his whole life. He was a regular backstage at the symphony and in the front rows of contemporary concerts. Sarah was a unique woman who loved David as much as he loved her, did whatever it took, and just kept improvising. David once hired her in his business. She was in a wheelchair, and after a day's work, she requested a ride home, which he could not give her that second, and she responded that instead of waiting, she would hitchhike. And sure enough, before long, she was out on the street in her chair with a thumb trying to catch a ride, a sight that David would later recount with amusement. Hard work, tenacity, and improvisation, they would become Adashek family traits, part of your crest, right next to Menschlichkeit and a wonderful sense of humor. It feels a little trite to recount simple stories like this, but our purpose is to remember that David had and is a beautiful soul, one that appreciated and loved and could laugh with depth or in mischief falsetto. His smile lit up the room, his eyes sparkled, and the effect of his presence lasted long after he left. Not having a biological father or other siblings to grow up with, he found other mentors and cultivated a geniality that would help augment his family with friends. Buckets Goldenberg, who was born in Russia like David's father, watched over David and became a surrogate father, which anointed David as a lifelong Packers and Badgers fan where Buckets played. And remember, this fondness was pure because he suffered through the long winters of the 5 and 10 seasons and the 4 and 10 seasons. His love was clearly not about the wins. It was about the dedication and ritual and the people that he shared it with, always parking in the same place, always eating the same things. He could sing varsity in his sleep, Jamie said. If you've never seen the picture of David in his Packer onesie, to see what kind of joy he found in all of it, you can see it on the family's Facebook page. And what you will see is there is representative of the way that David loved many aspects of life, whether it was a Bloody Mary with too much horseradish, a Dvorak concerto, a Bermuda onion sandwich, a dog show, a perfect meal in Paris. David's relish of them was with abandon. Rav Cheskia b'Shem Rav, Atid Adam Liten din v'cheshbon al kol sharaotina v'lo achal. In the Yerushalmi, in Masechet Kedushin, it says that Rav Chizkiah said in the name of Rav, you will one day have to give a reckoning for everything that your eyes saw that you did not enjoy. From what I understand, this kind of reckoning will not be a problem for David, for he went after everything. Not only were these passions that he loved, but he loved sharing them and talking about them, and he grew with them. During his life with Pam, he learned to cook. After a life of jazz and classical music, he realized that Jerry Garcia was like Benny Goodman. He didn't settle for one kind of mustard or condiment, but he had shelves and shelves full. He knew he couldn't fail because he was open and he was free and he knew how to change. His copious consumption of books rivaled his culinary ambitions. His house was filled with hardcovers, and it was enchanting to be around. Walls and walls of volumes. The question he always asked his grandchildren first was, so, what are you reading? And he kept up with current events through every newspaper available, and did so because politics and the world were important to him. And his children knew they had to participate. When Andrew was a child, the bus driver used to stop on the way to school for him, just so he could buy the New York Times so he could discuss it with his father when he got home. The acquisition of intelligence, Dea, understanding, Bina, and wisdom, Haskel, were intensely important to David and to Anne as foundational principles for the kids' upbringing. David was often silly and always optimistic, and it made his children believe that they could do anything, which was silly and optimistic until it proved true. He and Anne raised 5 solid children. And here's your $100 question. David used to give them $100 questions at dinner when they were kids. What made David as proud of his children as much as their achievements and the life they created? The answer was that as great as they became, they never forgot what he called their Milwaukee values. This, according to Pam, meant that from wherever they sat and to whomever they were speaking, they always thought for themselves, and they were always natural, normal Milwaukee people. I took this to mean that they were kind, unintimidated by and uninitiated in haughtiness, and schooled in treating everyone with respect. As a representative of Milwaukee, one couldn't find anyone better than David, someone who was willing to dress as he did with color and flair to make people and himself smile. I saw a picture of him the other day with a hat that looked like that had a pot of flowers on it, and I thought it was a filter that one of his 14 grandchildren had put on the picture, but no, he had that hat. He had white suits with hand-painted ladybugs and flamboyant socks that would make an American coot applaud, a glorious inherited fur coat, and with that beard, he somehow looked as good in a tie-dye as he did in a tuxedo or a sharp suit, which he always wore if it was to accord someone else honor. For him, he didn't need it, but for others, he could look like an aristocrat. The Adashek house that I knew best had rainbow stairs, each a different color. A mannequin named Helga, a couch shaped like lips, a cookie corner, famous paintings, and things I had no idea could go into a proper house. And the word for it is style. An apartment of his had a wall of mirrors like Versailles. Reflected in it were parrots and dragons and gumballs and whatever other whimsy he acquired and never dreamed of discarding. As a spokesman for all that was good about here in the Midwest, you could trust David because he traveled the world tasting the finest things. And nonetheless, he would then come home and treat Benji's as if its menu was written on the Temple Mount. He made himself qualified to say so. David has lifelong friends, friends he spent every Saturday with, friends he spent every New Year with, friends who went with him to Dead shows and Packer games and the Symphony, business associates who became friends, friends of children who became friends, friends who were also as his sisters and brothers. Some of you are listening online, and please know that the family appreciates greatly that you're here and knows you would be here personally if this weren't such a wicked year. David was great company. He wanted to get to know everyone and always tried. If someone called him on the phone, say a telemarketer from India, before long, David would know about the person's family and what was happening in Bengaluru. With his appeal, he probably could have gotten himself invited to a meal there if he wanted to, and he probably wanted to. David did not live his entire life in Milwaukee. As you know, his life ended in Highland Park, and there was graduate school time spent in Chicago and Arizona. He went to Madison studying accounting, and he became friends with the Gedolim of Wisconsin there, the legends of our youth. He met Ann there because one day he was walking by an apartment building and he saw a sign that said, Ann Simons for Purim Queen. And he said to himself, I guess I have to meet Ann Simons. That was the kind of royalty he could go for. Queen Anne and therefore King David were married in September 1962 and spent many wonderful, supportive years together. There were ups and downs, and they weathered them together because of their love for one another. When things got bad, they made sure that all the animals were accounted for, unlocked the liquor cabinet, brought their family around, including Anne's who made him their own, and ordered a deli tray, and then pressed on. For a time after college, David moved to New York when he joined the Army. He was an accountant at Fort Totten, where Jamie was born. One of his duties was to collect the money at the base, and the Army base's lawyer and doctor went with them. They were the three Jews on the base, the accountant, the lawyer, and the doctor. And they were only allowed to touch their guns on this particular errand. Had others had their way, they would have taken away those guns, because what did the accountant, the lawyer, and the doctor, the Jews, know from guns? They should have been in their books, and David would have preferred it. He did business to support the family's lifestyle, whether it was the cookie shop, the candy factory, real estate, tennis clubs, skating rinks, making hospitals in Kazakhstan, fabricating mannequins, consultancy in Vietnam. Business for him was a living, but more importantly, it was a way to engage in the world, to see what kinds of adventures he could have through it. Business was not primarily about making money, it was to sample the world. Once when he was in Kazakhstan, he went to the top of a skyscraper that was run down and infested with locusts. And the first thing he said was, this place has potential. He had vision. He always tried to make things better, whether it was Camp Interlaken or the association where he and Pam lived or with his family. He was not a man to sit back and accept. And he worked until he couldn't anymore. David did not like hospitals, but he learned to bear them when Anne got sick. And after she died, knowing that she would want David to continue to find joy and love, David was fortunate enough to meet Pam, with whom he spent a wonderful 15 years. When he met her, he knew that he wanted to be with her, deleted his profile immediately, and drove down regularly, hours in those first years to be with her. There was much love between them, and they made each other happy. Pam's son quickly became part of the family, and her grandchildren became loved by him as his own. As settled as he was in Milwaukee, because of Pam, he never had a second thought about moving to Highland Park, and immediately made friends and a life there. And they traveled together and enjoyed combining their lives, which, because they had similar styles, who knew anyone could match his, They somehow fit together. David was vivacious. He showed his excitement without shame and made people smile and made them happy because he was happy. What he set out to do, raise 5 children and keep them safe, teach them to think for themselves and follow their own paths, help them realize how free they are, to be okay with making mistakes and to cultivate wonder and trust that they can overcome anything. What he set out to do, he achieved. His death will not test that. They can brave the storm that comes. David was their hero. He will be missed to no end. He was a diamond. He was a champion of each of them and a dear husband. The word love could not be shouted loud enough by a stadium of his fans to convey how much he was adored. He made space for his children and his grandchildren, and he moved in close when they needed him. Fittingly, everyone I spoke with seemed to say, I spoke to him every day, 5 times a day, first thing in the morning, 6 a.m., twice a day, on my way to work on the freeway. I got to wondering, what else did he have time for? How did he fit in all those books and those projects and the travel and the food? And it had to be that he made every second count. Yes, he died too soon, far too soon. The beloved can never live long enough. He outlived his father by almost 40 years. He also lived so much in the 83 years he received. Who can measure how much life he actually lived? Psalm 8 asks an open question. Ma Adam ki tiskarenu, uven Adam ki tifkadenu. What is man that you've been mindful of him? Mortal man, that you've taken note of him, that you've made him a little less than the divine and adored him with glory and majesty. You have made man master over your handiwork, laying the world at his feet. Why create people? Why entrust this world to them? If you look at David Adashek and the way he was a steward for the world when he was with us, the world that God entrusted to him, you have a good answer. And that is because people like David will love life, and they, like him, will make the world better. Because our tradition leaves some unknown where the afterlife is concerned, and because we're attuned to metaphor, there is space to imagine that in the world to come, when David arrives, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will review his life. And by the end of the interview, knowing David, he'll probably know more about the Kadosh Baruch Hu than the other way around. So how is life in Bengaluru? But through the review, which will include all the tzedakah he gave and the time he donated to the downtrodden, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will undoubtedly see what a unique and wonderful person David was to his friends and his family, and that he existed in the world the way no one has before. We don't have hats like that here yet, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will think. No one pronounces Vietnam this interesting way, God will say. And these days, there are ups and downs and challenges that I face, God will say, and I think I need a man like you. And then David will see the world to come and look around and probably say, this place has potential. David ben David Vasara, may you rest in peace. And your memory, we promise, will be a blessing.
First one.
Flowers and sanitizer here as well.
Simon. Michaela.
ask them if they have any more in the shop. How many were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like 2 more?
Like 2 more would be great.
Teddy, hold up.
Please rise. El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bam Romim, Hamsei Minucha Nechona Tachach Kanfei Hashkina, V'ma'alot Kirushim Utaharim Kezoha Haraki Amasirin, Et Nishmat David Ben David V'Sara, Shehalach La'olamo Began Eden Tehe Menuchato, Ana Ba'al Harachamim Hastirehu Beseter Kinafecha La'olamim, Utzror Bitur HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, Ve'anuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar, Amen. Exalted and compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of David Adashek, who is gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. Let us say, Amen. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam umei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran b'alma v'imru Amen. Yehesh lama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. This concludes our service. If we could ask everyone who's not a mourner, the grandchildren, to line up in 2 rows facing each other, and then the mourners can walk through, and this will conclude our service. I understand that there's going to be some virtual shivas, so please check the family website, the family Twitter, and there'll be time for everyone to visit and to express their condolences. And please, make sure to reach out and share memories, because those are the things that are most helpful at this time.
Hi, I'm gonna turn off the video, but thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.